I'm Sarah Redmond. I'm the Adult Selection Specialist for the Capital Area District Library, and I'm very proud and excited to present to you today Audrey Niffenegger, the beloved and best-selling author of Time Traveler's Wife. In 2003, her first novel, The Time Traveler's Wife, was published, and it debuted at number 9 on the New York Times bestseller list. Then it went on to become the Amazon.com Book of the Year. And as someone who buys books for the library, I have to tell you, this is a rare thing to have happen with a debut novel. It has to start with an editor who really believes in a book and gives it to a publisher, and a publisher who then sells it to the bookseller, and booksellers who sell it to customers who buy it by hundreds, thousands, and millions. A book with this staying power on the bestseller lists is extremely rare, and for a debut novel to reach this level is something that only happens every few years. This story of time traveler Henry and his true love Claire was made into a feature film starring Eric Bana and Rachel McAdams in 2009 and has recently been released on DVD. Also in 2009, Niffenegger released her second novel, Her Fearful Cemetery. Would you tell our listeners a little bit about your new book?
Well, Her Fearful Cemetery is set in modern-day London, and one of the things I was trying to do was take all the 19th century English novel cliches and kind of give them a little shake and give them a fresh setting and hope that it would be thrilling for people. And so it's about a woman named Elspeth Noblin who dies, and she leaves all her belongings and her beautiful flat to her twin American nieces who don't know her at all. And so they moved to London because one of the conditions of the bequest is that they have to live in the flat for a year. The flat is just on the edge of Highgate Cemetery, and so they get kind of involved with the cemetery, but they also start to meet their neighbors who are kind of peculiar. And the most peculiar thing is that the aunt is stuck in the flat as a ghost, and so she's compelled to hang around and watch what happens after she's died.
Well, I can tell you, as in Time Traveler's Wife, you are a fantastic storyteller. Not only do you write beautifully, you also have the gift of telling a story that just drags you along by your hair. You can't stop until you finish it. We've got a book which features twins and ghosts. I'm curious about which came first in the writing process. Did you start with the thought of twins and how that relationship plays out? Were you intrigued by the ghosts, or was it Highgate Cemetery? What was the beginning of this book?
It actually started with obsessive-compulsive disorder.
Oh, interesting.
The very beginning.
The character.
Yeah, the very beginning was the idea of a man who can't leave his apartment. And as I was first beginning to think about him, I thought, well, he's got this kind of dark apartment full of boxes, and he can't go out. And I envisioned that there would be a cemetery that you could see from his windows. And I also imagined that there would be this girl who would come and visit him. And characters tend to accumulate other characters. Mm-hmm. And so the girl originally had this annoying roommate named Valentina. And that character was so annoying, in fact, that I sort of squished her up and threw her away and decided instead that Julia would have a twin. And so the twins were in it very early, but they were not the starting point.
Interesting. Not at all where I thought your beginning focus would have been. Although I have to tell you that I was the peripheral characters. Robert, who is the lover of the aunt Elspeth, although he's much younger, he lives in the flat below, and in the flat above is this obsessive-compulsive man named Martin, whose wife has just left him because she can't live with all of the routines that have to go with his disease. And this love story for me was so it was heartbreaking and joyous at the same time because they clearly loved each other.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Yeah, Martin is definitely the romantic hero of the book because his task, and it's very clear from the beginning, his task is to go and find Marika, his wife. And there he is, kind of oscillating in his little flat.
Yeah, she actually leaves him and goes back to her native, I believe, Amsterdam, but doesn't tell him where she's going or where she's living. And anyway, she knows the only way he can get to her.
She's quite confident that he can figure it out. He's a crossword setter, and he has a passion for puzzles and games and clues and that sort of thing.
So one of the ways he gets out of his apartment is that one of the twins sort of adopts him, and I don't want to give too much away here.
Yeah, that's the problem with talking about this book. It's full of spoilers.
It's full of spoilers. there's a question I'm going to have to ask you later when we're off camera. But now I was really curious about your knowledge of twins, which felt to me so real, even though I'm not a twin and I've never known a twin intimately. But I thought that you must have started there because that felt so real. And I'm curious about where you got the knowledge to give not only their relationship, but another set of twins in the book, just real life. It was very believable that these sisters, they were symmetrical. How they couldn't live with each other and couldn't live without each other.
Yeah. One of the things that's lovely about talking about one's work is that periodically people will gift you with interesting tidbits. And at the beginning of this project, when I was wandering around, people would say, what are you working on? And I would say, well, it's a ghost story, it's got these twins, it's got this guy who's got OCD. And people would say, oh, I have OCD, or oh, I'm a twin, or whatever. Nobody said I'm a ghost, fortunately. But of the 3 people who said to me, I'm a twin, I mean, in all 3 cases, I had no idea. I mean, I just knew them as themselves, individual people. And so in each case, I said, well, where's your twin? How come I don't know your twin? And all 3 of them had these stories of getting to the point where it was time to go to college, and they had to figure out kind of how they were going to go about being adults and twins and individuals. And so in all 3 cases, I had never met their twins because their twins lived elsewhere. But it was interesting to me that you could have a twin and not have that twin be part of your daily life.
Yeah.
And so it definitely got me thinking about that relationship and what it must be like and how each pair of twins will have to solve it for themselves.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was a remarkable part of the story. And I was curious, if they were representative of something larger. When I was on your website earlier, you have a wonderful painting, a self-portrait actually, of yourself as Siamese twins, which I thought was really interesting. And by the way, you really should visit her website because you can see many of her visual works there. And there was a comment in there, or that I read in one of the interviews I read, which from the New York Times Review, which described her fearful symmetry as a search for self in the midst of an obsession with another.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very astute comment, because the entire novel has to do with this push-pull between the desire to merge with another and be completed by another, and the urge to pull back and be yourself and chart your own course. And it's certainly something I've thought about a lot over the course of my life, and I think that most people have to contend with that sooner or later. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have to decide if you're going to get married, not get married, what kind of life do you want to have? And it's so fundamental that I think people make a lot of assumptions about it and don't necessarily question themselves about why they're making certain choices. And so one of the things I'm doing in the novel is letting all the characters be in situations where they have to make some decisions about that. Is Martin going to go find Marijke? Is Marijke happy in her little apartment in Amsterdam, or is she really getting kind of lonely without him? Is Robert ever going to get over Elspeth dying? And so on and so on.